Today I'm going to be sharing a card that I made using the products that are included in the Stella kit from the workshops on the go. This stamp set is only available through the purchase of that kit. I'm also going to be cutting out some images using the Cricut Art Philosophy cartridge, which is also only available through Close to My Heart, and I'll show you that. I'll be using a few different colors of the exclusive inks. For the card base, I'm going to be using an 8.5 by 5.5 scored at 4 1/4 card base. This is the Colonial White. I'm also going to be using a couple different pieces of cardstock. This one is Sunset, and this is 4 1/4 by 5.5. That's going to be used to matte the background, or the foreground, excuse me. This is Lagoon, cut at 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. This is a piece of the B&T paper from that Stella pack, and this is cut at 4 by 5 1/4. I have 2 strips of cardstock. Each are 4 by 1, and then as you can see, I've torn the edges. This is a smaller piece, 2 by 2, of another piece of the B&T papers that come with the Stella pack. They're double-sided. Now, using the Art Philosophy cartridge, I cut out a few shapes that we're going to be using in this project as well. This is the one of the tag. I just wrote on there the word love. The tags can be found on page 39. This is cut out at 3 3/4. This is cut out at 3/4 of an inch. The banners that I am going to be using on this card were cut on B&T paper, and these are found on the Cricut cartridge on page 68. And I actually cut out 3. And they were cut out, I cut out 2. And then what I did is I trimmed the banners. They were basically, I trimmed 3/8 of an inch off of each side, and then took that to create a third banner. I've turned the D&T paper over for this other pattern. I mounted it on an additional piece of the Sunset, and that's going to be my third little banner that's going to go on the card. So now we're ready to get started putting the card, assembling the card. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp the base. I'm going to be using the Desert Sand. I'm going to start off with the lampshade. And remember, to get your best impression, you want to use this, I don't know what this material is, but it comes on the back of each of your stamp sets, and it helps to create a very good impression with your stamps. I'm going to ink it up good and then do a test. I'm just looking for a background, so I don't need it really dark or perfect at this point. So, excuse my head if I get it in the way. This is going to go right about here. I'm centering it on there. And again, this is just going to be a base, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to also stamp that image onto the opposite side of what I want on the card, and then I'm going to cut that out, and that's going to create a nice little layer, and you'll see what I'm talking about, kind of doing a 3D. Going to cut that out. When you're cutting, it's best to turn the paper, not the scissors. You'll get a much smoother cut. Have a little more control also. At least I feel that's how it works out. And what I'll be doing with this is I'm going to take that lampshade and pop it on there. Okay. The next thing I'm going to stamp is the base of the lamp. And that I am going to be stamping. I think I'll go ahead this time and use the same color, the Desert Sand. But what I am going to do is I have already stamped out another Post-it note to create a mask. So I'm going to put that right on top before I stamp. And that way it doesn't stamp on top of the lampshade. There we go. So now we've got our base. And then last, I am going to stamp the cinnamon, and that's going to be done in the Lagoon. Love that color. I'm trying to get some balance between all the colors that come on this beautiful pattern paper. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp the cinnamon. Put that on my block. I really love these blocks and the stamps because they're clear and you can really line everything up nicely. And there we go. Isn't that nice? Isn't that beautiful? So now we have our image stamped. What I'm going to do next is adhere the lamp shade that we created. Now this would also look really cute if it were popped up on 3-dimensional. But for today, that's what I'm going to do. So what I've decided is I'm going to show you how I actually put that one banner together that we talked about. I had the 2 strips that had been cut off of the banners. They were initially, gosh, I want to say 2 inches across. Anyway, I cut off 3/4 of an inch, and then what I'm going to do is apply some adhesive. I'm going to line it up on the top, leaving a little bit of a border on the side. Keep it as parallel as I can, and then I'll do it with the other piece as well. And this one, what I'm going to do is butt it up against the first one, so we can get a nice seam. There we go. That's how I made that 3rd banner that I mentioned. Now what I'm going to do is adhere it to the piece of D&T, and I think I should turn it this way. Yeah, that's going to look better. I want this to go in the center, and I want it to come down to the tip here. So I'm going to adhere it about like that. Again, just using some nice adhesive. And I'm not one to measure for exact or precise, so it's just going to go down what I think is the center. And then I'm going to trim it off. There we go. Now I'm ready to go ahead and attach these 2. And again, this pattern comes from the back side of that paper. Love this paper, love the Lagoon. I just think that Lagoon is just a beautiful color. I'm going to figure out how I can incorporate that into my craft room. So again, I'm not being real precise. I'm kind of following the pattern here to get it straight up and down. I'm going to do that with this one as well. Leaving about the same amount here. There we go. Okay. The next thing is I'm going to attach these 2, and basically what I did is I cut out a 1-inch strip by 4 and then carefully just tore the edges and just layer the 2. Now what I want to do is, I know that I want to place this right about here, so I want to figure out where do I want these guys to land. And I think right about there is good. that works for me. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these. Turn that around, trim that off. I find that it's easier if I cut the piece of papers that I'm going to be attaching a little longer than what the base is, and then I can always trim it off, and that way I never end up short. So there we have that. Now I'm going to go ahead and complete the base and do all the matting that I'm going to be doing. Okay, well, my idea here is to attach this and take the love and take the little love tag that I did and attach that there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this in. Let's see what happens. Just string it through. The hole didn't punch out since it was so small, very large. There we go. I got it. Yay! Probably what I should have done was attach it under there, but we'll make it work. We will make it work. Here we go. There we go. Yahoo! Where there's a will, there's a way. That's what I always say. Let's get some more adhesive on this. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to use just a few dimensionals to pop this up because I really think it would look best all popped up. The dimensionals that I am using right now are from Stampin' Up! Because I've got a bunch of those left over and they are really good dimensionals. So why not use what we've got, right? There we go. Pop that up. One last thing I'm going to do to ground this card is I'm going to take my Copic markers, and this is the C1, just a cool gray, and I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow here so it doesn't look like it's just kind of floating out there. And that'll just kind of ground it. And just add a little shadow around the edge here so it looks a little more 3D. And there you go. So then we can take our card base, attach this face of this card to our card base, fold that over, and there you have it.